AskReddit by agreeable way for 6861. What is extremely rare but people think it's very common? People surviving CPR and waking up immediately acting normal and asking what happened. People surviving CPR at all. They say to keep doing it because a fractional chance of surviving is always better than certain death. Amnesia. It's common in fiction because it's convenient in ways that makes things easy for the writers. For example, explaining why someone's dark past is a secret which can be revealed later at the climax of the story. In real life it's very rare and doesn't work like people think it does. I think I've watched every episode of Unsolved Mysteries, and I cannot count the number of episodes with a segment suggesting a missing person had amnesia and was just wandering around in the world without a clue as to who they were. I guess in the 80s and 90s this sounded plausible or was a coping mechanism for people who didn't want to admit the truth about their missing loved one, but some of the stories are so far-fetched it's hard to believe they believed it even then. Stranger abductions of children represent less than 1% of all missing child cases, in the US, at least. They are mostly runaways or family abductions. It's the same with sex trafficking. People think it's abductions of children and teens. Those are at the most 3%. The rest are people convinced to do it or people dealing with what we used to call pimps. They might be forced due to addiction or poverty, but it's extremely rare for sex trafficking victims to have been kidnapped. Successfully suing a company for millions. Some Redditors will have you believe that any minor inconvenience should earn you some kind of massive payout. And the comments will assure you that the company will do anything to avoid bad PR. I mentioned this in another sub tonight, but my mom successfully sued a famous retailer she worked for. They fired her while on workman's comp leave. Apparently that's illegal in our state. She took home $250,000 plus healthcare for life. Not millions, but life-changing money for sure, for her anyway. What they don't talk about is the BS you go through during a suit. It took almost 10 years. She was constantly being harassed by the other side. Forced to go to DR apps over and over to have the same tests run over and over. It was a long nightmare. It doesn't happen often but it does happen. Insanity pleas actually sticking. NGRI, not guilty by reason of insanity, becomes its own kind of nightmare when it actually does stick. With decades of institutional confinement and yearly court reviews mandated by law. I have clients who are still institutionalized today, who would have been out of prison years ago if they had simply pled guilty. Kids given drugs at Halloween. Nobody wants to waste their money on giving kids free drugs. Casting director here. Having a career in acting, I don't mean being famous. I mean paying your bills with acting alone. I would hazard being an exclusively working actor is about 1% of actors. But the amount of people still going into acting tells me people think otherwise. I'm guessing the same is true for musicians. Your kid becoming a pro, or even college athlete. I'm a teacher. I run into this all the time. I'm gonna be in the NBA. Oh, are you on the school team? No, I got cut. They're bad anyway, why would I play with them? Going missing in the Bermuda Triangle. And the reason that it is so common is because the Bermuda Triangle is actually one of the most heavily trafficked area of any ocean. It's like comparing the busiest highway on the planet to a road through the desert. Of course the highway has more accidents. Walking into an alley in Manhattan. Happens all the time in shows movies. In reality there are like 1 or 2 in the whole borough. The alley that is often seen in movies based in New York is Cortlandt Boardwalk %20 Empire. Blimps. There are only around 25 left. It would be cool if there were more blimps and hot air balloons. There is probably some big reason why they aren't a thing anymore but they are amazing. Not sure if I'd really say rare, But I think a lot of people think it's common for legislators to introduce bills with the intention of trying to pass them. But for most representatives, they are introducing bills that they know will never pass so they can show their constituents they stuck to their campaign promises and blame it on the other side when they never even really did anything to even try to get it a hearing. I work in policy, and when I first started I knew it was bad, but dear God, it's even worse than I thought. Is there a database where someone can track a politician's legislative record? Not just what bills they write but the outcome and what they are doing to try pass it? I find it is so difficult to gather information to gauge a politician's merit. Perhaps that's by design. It makes it hard to know who to vote for. Epilepsy being triggered by flashing lights. Only 3% of people with epilepsy have this, and it's called photosensitive epilepsy. Helium. Second most abundant element in the universe, stupidly rare on Earth. I love this answer. Being awake during a surgery under general anesthesia. Patients worry about it all the time, but I've been doing this 19 years and never seen a real case of this. My dad woke up during anesthesia. Scared the crap out of the doctors operating on him. He wanted spaghetti after the surgery and remembers none of this. I've never seen my father eat spaghetti before or since this day. People who are truly compatible with you, and I mean both friendships and relationships. This is so true. I met my best friend 7 years ago and she is the opposite of me in every way, but we click and it's just how a friendship should be. Makes life feel kinder. Green eyes. I have a chicken with green eyes. It's even more rare in chickens than in humans, with only a few breeds having them. Her name is Olive. Savant abilities in autism. We have Rain Man to thank for that, largely, but there are big questions as to whether the guy this was based on actually should have been diagnosed with something other than ASD. Often people think someone has savant abilities simply because they can't imagine someone with a normal ability to memorize things putting in the number of hours it takes to, say, memorize every single national flag when, nope, they just spent a lot of time poring over an atlas as a kid because that's what they wanted to do rather than memorizing Pokemon names or whatever, my son in this example. Pearls. Of all the fine stones, I know it classifies differently, but for jewelry, it's basically a stone. It's the one that has to happen in an oyster, which only exist on Earth. Other planets literally raining diamonds, they are so common. But, pearls are probably one of the rarest substances to exist. My ex ordered blackened oysters at this place in Baton Rouge one time and bit down on a natural pearl. Half of it was blackened and half of it was still all pearlescent. It's still one of my favorite possessions to this day and I want to get it made into a necklace but can't decide on a setting. Your comment makes me want to revisit this venture. CPR survivors. True. And the ones that do survive typically have lifelong complications. A business becoming profitable within 2 years. Be patient, it takes time, years. Businesses only fail if they have to be shut down. Keep them alive, ride out the time factor, and enjoy success down the road. I've owned my business going on 16 years. I wasn't about to comfortably support myself until about year 5 and even now I'm incredibly frugal as COVID almost made me lose so much work. Being offered free drugs. I was told by a talking giraffe that I would be offered free drugs left and right. I feel very cheated. Harold. Shark attacks resulting in death. According to the New York City Board of Public Health, for every person around the world bitten by a shark, 25 people are bitten by New Yorkers. Natural triplets. 1 human pregnancy in 7,700. Pandas. There are only about 1,800 left in the wild.